Welcome back, travelers, to Legendary Lore, where today we're going to be talking about Teferi and the Mirage War. It's worth noting that at this point in time in the story, Teferi has basically already had some time with Joyra at the Mana Rig. Some romantic feelings developed, but they never actually came to fruition because Teferi had to go back home. He had to become basically the royal mage of Zalfur and try to get things to work out. The problem is that during this time, his Planeswalker Spark ignited during the time when he was working with his time stuff. This is one of the, it's not necessarily a traumatic event, which is kind of unusual, but usually a very high power Planeswalker that is very deeply thinking, you can get to that point. So basically, he had a time breakthrough. He became a Planeswalker, and as a Planeswalker, you kind of stop caring about the little aspects of things. You tend to look at bigger systems. This is the old way Planeswalkers were because they weren't mortal anymore at the time. So being a Planeswalker essentially meant that everything else around you was an ant. You were a giant hammer, everything else is a nail. And so what he did is he thought to himself, okay, I don't really want to be here anymore. And as a Planeswalker, he could just off and he's gone. So that's the thing. He creates 5 guilds. And those guilds, as I have them listed here, because I was not... the Mirage story was told through a bunch of little tidbits and short stories and comics and stuff like that. So the Mirage is a little shaky as far as actual bits go. But you had the Civic Guild, the Shaper Guild, the Shadow Guild, the Armorer Guild, and the Granger Guild.
Fencer was a Shaper.
That is true. But I don't think he was part of the Shaper Guild.
Whoa.
That was a very good connection, though. And Shaper is blue. But basically, he leaves. And he goes, okay, you 5 guilds, you're going to control everything. You guys have this, you guys have this, you guys have this. It's going to be great.
Trying to start a turf war?
Yeah.
It won't be as hilarious as I'm thinking, probably.
So Teferi leaves, he comes back, and he's like, what did you do? I left for a few decades. And so the 5 guilds that were left in power, the Shadow Guild, nobody trusts because they're the ones that handle all the corpses. And they're like, oh, they're super evil. And then you had the southern side of Zalfur that actually just seceded and became, I believe it's Femeref? Yes, Femeref. And they found gold, which caused the Cicada people to come down and start attacking them because they wanted their gold, which also caused the dwarves of the Cicada region to have to be in Femeref, which caused more conflicts with them.
So Teferi made the worst version of Fantasy America.
Yeah, pretty much. And so basically he creates this whole problem and he tries to fix it. So he finds this girl, this young girl, and she's of royal descent. And he thinks, okay, royalty, people love royalty. Everybody cares about the queen. So he trains this girl basically to become proper and just a good leader. And he goes, okay, this is your queen. There you go.
Now we have a monarchy.
Yeah, so he thinks that this person, Queen Yormeba, is going to be everything they need in order for everything to work. Also, I'm pretty sure I mispronounced at least a few of these names. It's very cool. The area is very cool. I'm not particularly equipped to be able to speak specific African dialect-inspired names, which I'm sure most of the people that made the set didn't either, but that's beside the point. Now, with that said, Teferi leaves to go to his Isle. You may have heard of Teferi's Isle.
I have.
What is the ability on Teferi's Isle?
It phases.
It phases. And that's really what Teferi was practicing with, was phasing spells. He loves time. He grew up in an academy focused on time travel. So he kind of really delved into that. The problem is, he didn't really know what he was doing. And he realized that he had no idea what he was doing once his monkey bat thing started phasing in and out of existence at will. Huh? And he thought to himself, maybe I shouldn't be messing with this sort of stuff. But it was already too late. And his entire island phased out.
Oh.
Yeah. So when Teferi's entire island phased out of existence, there was this mana surge that basically just eradicated everything around it, but the reverberations of which were felt everywhere, especially by powerful mages. So now Teferi's Isle is this barren slab of stone, and 3 major wizards show up to see what's going on. You have Jol Royale, who was Empress of Beasts, essentially. She has 2 cards, and she shows up and she's like, hey, this is really weird. And That's basically her entire deal. She shows up, notices there's basically nothing there, and she's kind of confused, but she meets two other people. Also, two characters that have two cards. Mangara of Karandor and Kervek, the Merciless.
Oh, Mangara's second card was recent.
Yes, you may recall that during the special core set, they had Teferi as a main character. There were 3 very specific characters of that variety. Was Baron also in that same set?
No.
I didn't think he was. But who was the blue one for that set? Because the white one was Mangara, the black one was Kervek, the green one was Jor-Rael, and the red one was Teferi's eventual wife that we'll get to some point in the few weeks. So, I can't remember who the blue creature was for that set.
Did they count Teferi as blue?
They may have. The point is, these were characters that had a big impact on Teferi's life. And the reason is because Jor-Rael, Empress of Beasts, was a friend of Teferi's, Mangara was an extremely wise wizard, and Kervek was absolutely the worst possible warlord you could run into.
Yeah!
Yeah. He was pretty bad.
Same.
And so, basically what happens is that Kervek traps Mangara in an amber prison and tricks Jor-Rael into becoming his lackey, and Kervek basically goes back to the mainland and starts just thrashing everything. Teferi comes back a few years later, faces back into existence, and is like, that was really weird. Did you feel a weird earthquake happen? I think an earthquake happened. Why is the sky different? Why is there... What's different? Why is everything different? And he realized that it's because he'd been gone for several years. He had just phased out of existence. So phasing, as we know it, means that if something is phased out, it's as if time doesn't exist to it. It's like a blink, essentially.
Does it happen often with this story? In all of Teferi's years being alive, has he not been existed for some of them?
Yeah, some of them, yeah. Because there was the whole deal where he was frozen in time back on the Tellurian Academy. And then there was this point right here. He's had a lot of experience with phasing and with time magic in general, but those are the 2 major times where he himself was frozen out of time.
Okay.
And the main reason that he looks so young is because of the slow time water. Drinking slow time water generally just makes you immortal. I didn't really mention that. I mentioned that he drank fast time water, but
age, but
yeah. But basically, you still got Baron alive. You got Joyra alive. There's a bunch of characters that are basically functionally immortal because they drink that slow time water. Teferi doesn't need it because he's a planeswalker, but he had drunken enough of it that if for some reason he lost his spark, that he would still be extremely well lived. He wouldn't age very quickly. Now, that all said, everything that happened with Kervek was pretty simple. He had his army. There were defenders. Teferi could kind of only half interfere because he was trying to weave all the timeline stuff back together that he broke. So he could kind of just be like, hey, don't do that. And eventually Kervek lost support once Jor-Rael realized how insane he was, and they all together, all the nations united and were finally able to defeat Kervek and knock him out. Teferi retires to the Chaza Isles so that he can keep messing with time, and then the only other time he really shows up before everything happens with the actual invasion is when there's a thing called the Planeswalker War, which is essentially the original version of the whole War of the Spark deal. And he saves another planeswalker named Daria, who appears, I think, on either 1 or 2 cards. When she gets trapped inside of an amber prison as well, he frees her, and that's really the only time he shows up. Until Urza's like, hey, I need your help. But we are not there yet. Now, for the next episode, we're going to have to go and see how the bloodlines are going, and how that is going to play out.
So Mirage was just Teferi failing at running a nation because he didn't want to run a nation.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then disappearing.
The thing is that as a planeswalker, you don't think about the consequences of your actions, because as a planeswalker, you have such immeasurable power that you just wind up causing these reverberations with whatever choice you make. And so Teferi doing one thing that he thinks is going to help something, if he doesn't maintain it, if he didn't take care of it, it was going to just go out of control because he put power in the hands of several factions without figuring a way to give them checks and balances, and he didn't tell any one of them how things should handle for every situation. And Teferi being the most powerful entity in the area means that he would be able to have the absolute power to be able to help those people in the event they needed somebody that was stronger or greater than them to handle something. But planeswalkers don't do that. Even in the modern age, planeswalkers like Jace would very, very often use their first instinct, which was to run. run very far and very fast. And that was basically all they would do.
Kasmina.
Yeah, Kasmina, same deal. She gets too tough, run away. So that's what kind of the problem in this age is that they don't just run away. They cause these giant paradigm shifts, and then they run away.
But Jace had that character development.
Yeah, Jace had character development, but
Now he doesn't wear his hood as often.
it's true, and he's ripped. So yeah.
Cunning Castaway, more like charming Castaway.
More like cut it, Castaway.